we right now.
Yeah, so next week we're going to be talking about healing the divine feminine in men. So that's why we wanted to bring this up for you.
And at your life, Healthy Life, where are we going here?
HealthyLife.net?
No, the Conscious Living Expo, the Sacred Sexuality.
Oh, that's right.
Which, when you put the sacred sexuality alongside, and I'm not banging Mr. Woods or Mr.
Thank
Edwards
God,
either, but
that would be a whole other show.
the sacred sexuality and the we part is a little bit twisted there. I'd say it's a lot twisted. Let's not underestimate the damage that's been done everywhere because there's no respect. There's no reverence here. We need to get back to, those are words that we're throwing out today, but we're going to go into those words a little bit more later.
Yeah.
Not just in this show, but in every show. Reverence, respect, sacred.
Yeah, so we wanted you to know we're going to be talking celebrity. You know, we've got a lot of role models out there right now that are confused themselves. There's a big open playing field for how we reinvent relationship. It's a very exciting time, but we also recognize a very painful time. So we want to bring you tools and inspiration and answer your questions and all of that. That's what we're doing here. We're devoted to helping you develop that power of we on many levels. And by the way, I don't know that some of you may or may not know this. I've got another show. If you're just tuning into our show, I've got a show on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. live called Maryanne Live, and I interview authors and celebrities and things like that about personal development. But we wanted to make a distinction on this show. We really want to hone in on relational issues, human sexuality, what it is to be in partnership, to be single. We're going to be talking about all things relationship right here on Thursdays at 10 a.m. from now on, right here on HealthyLife.net radio. So we look forward to having you. Let's talk a little bit, honey. Let's start telling our story before we go to the break, because it's pretty beautiful.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah, people ask us all the time, how did you guys meet? And that's the least exciting bit, but nonetheless, it is pretty synchronistic.
We had we started, this is where our stories completely are the same. Sometimes they vary a little, but in a good way.
Yeah.
We did have a mutual friend, and the mutual friend knew that both of us were pretty big personalities, and needed to find in another big personality. And she said, you want to meet that person. And I said, okay. Well, I was going to Africa, and I said, well, when I come back from Africa, I'll consider it. And Maryanne was doing her thing, and she says, well, maybe later, or whatever she said. And
I said no.
Oh, that was it? No.
I said no. Oh, what about no, don't you understand? Because one of my friends, this is a friend who had set me up on like a bunch of dates that were, no offense to my beautiful, magnificent brothers out there, perfect for someone else, let's put it like that. Not so great for me, okay? And I wasn't interested in a not so great for me date, so I wanted to take a hall pass.
So we waited it was about 4 weeks or so, and got back in, and I called our mutual friend and said, well, let me have her phone number and I'll call her. And then if we like each other on the phone, then we'll consider it.
Right, and a little bit of a backdrop, because I know this happens with people. I was at the end of a very complicated relationship, ending, more importantly, and God bless my brother who was in that relationship with me. If he's out there listening, we love you, deeply. We're all healing. We're all in a certain part of our healing process. But I was healing a pretty big issue for myself, one that I don't need to name, but let me say this. I was trying to extricate myself from that situation. That could have been part of the no. I knew I needed to clean this up. I wasn't totally ready. I was at the end of that situation. And I think a lot of us, when we're considering getting into a new relationship, you want to do it in a clean way, because it can be a little messy. So for me,
it's a lot on the plate.
Yeah, I had some stuff on the plate for sure,
yeah.
which is important to talk about, honey, because the way you handled that ultimately was pretty beautiful, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that, I see that a lot of people have a lot on the plate, and if you let them reorganize that a little bit, we can all sit down and actually have a meal together in time, sort of metaphorically. But I think a lot of us just have too much on the plate, and we get anxious and upset, and then angry ultimately,
it's hard to make good choice.
And then you can't make a good choice. But we went slow. That was a kind of a critical word that was in my mind. We did consciously go slower than most people would even imagine speed actually moves at.
Like molasses.
But in a strong and solid way. It was intentionally that way. It
Yeah.
was not. This was not a mistake. This was not out of fear. It was actually
chose
absolutely intentional.
Yeah, so we chose friendship. Needless to say, I mean, the first time we talked on the phone, we hit it off. We had everything in common, in my opinion, that was on my top 5 list of things that I wanted to have in common. Because here's one of the things David and I separately, honey, you tell me if you agree. My relationships of historical relationships were based largely on a different kind of chemistry first, and then and I didn't explore. I used the hormonal litmus test myself. That's why I teach it in my work. With David, I felt a chemistry, but it came from another part of me as well. It came from my heart. It came from a compatibility on some different levels. So it made me. I was intrigued and curious, sort of like when you meet a friend that you just fall in love with right away, right?
Well, yeah.
Although I don't know what you were feeling.
Well,
well, you might have been feeling something else.
yeah, I never know what anybody else is feeling, but I did one thing that was probably different is I saw you through the glass as we were going to the restaurant, and
you were meeting me at the restaurant.
Meeting you at a restaurant, where we join in and say, okay, we're gonna go meet you there at 7:00, and how will you know me? And I go, well, I'll know you. And so when I just walking through, there were 2 sets of glass doors, and I looked through and I said, that's her, and I said, that's it. I hadn't even spent more than a half an hour or 45 minutes speaking, and I thought, okay, this is, and I don't know why, but it just stood out. You ever been to a room and one person in the entire room stands out for no particular reason? 51 person just glows, and all the other ones are just not in the same vibration. So for me, what I saw was a woman that I could at least start being in relationship with, and I felt very, very strong. Very,
you were
positive.
in love.
I was in love. I was deep in love at that moment, and I wouldn't admit it, but I was. Yeah.
Well, you did admit it when you come back after the break. You guys are not going to believe what David did later that night.
I don't mess around.
He doesn't mess around, people. Tune back in. We're right here on the Power of We. I'm your host, Maryanne Camarado.
And David Reynal.
We'll be back in just a minute after these messages, more from our sponsors, and you can find out what David did. It's going to blow your mind. Back in just a minute.
Okay, so still recording, not streaming live, streaming flawless.
Cool. Do you like it?